The Virginia dusk draped the horizon in hues of amber and crimson, casting long shadows over the colonial-style house that Ethan Caldwell had built with his own hands. Its white clapboard siding and black shutters stood resolute, a testament to his sweat and dreams, now haunted by the ghosts of a life torn apart. 14 months had passed since his marriage to Sophia, his ex-wife, crumbled under the weight of her betrayal. Ethan, a former Navy SEAL with 15 years of elite training, had left the battlefield to forge a new life as a construction company owner, pouring his heart into this home for Sophia and their son, Lucas. But Sophia's affair with Mason, Ethan's former business partner, shattered that vision, leaving Ethan with full custody of 8-year-old Lucas and a heart scarred but unbowed. The house was more than bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of Ethan's sacrifice, his love, and the sting of betrayal. Standing on the cracked asphalt of the driveway, Ethan felt a spark ignite within him, a dangerous blend of purpose and resolve. 2 days earlier, an invitation to a dinner party at this very house had arrived, written in Sophia's elegant, looping script. It was an anomaly. Ethan and Sophia hadn't exchanged civil words since the divorce. The note was polite, almost formal, but it carried an undercurrent of something Ethan couldn't ignore. His instincts, sharpened by years of covert operations, whispered of deception. This was no gesture of goodwill, it was a puzzle, and Ethan was determined to solve it. Lucas, a wiry boy with his father's piercing blue eyes and a quiet resilience, had unwittingly set this night in motion. Over a breakfast of pancakes and orange juice, he'd confessed to seeing shadowy figures lurking near the garage during his weekends with Sophia. "I hear noises, Dad," he'd said, his voice small but steady. "Like machines or something, late at night. It scares me." Ethan's heart clenched. The garage had once been his sanctuary, a workshop where he'd crafted a wooden rocking horse for Lucas's 5th birthday. Now, it was a question mark, a potential threat to his son's safety. Ethan's protective instincts roared to life, drowning out the pain of his past. What Sophia and Mason didn't know was that Ethan had engineered this invitation. Through mutual friends, he'd planted the seed of a reconciliation dinner, knowing Sophia's pride would compel her to play the gracious host. This wasn't about mending fences, it was about uncovering the truth and shielding Lucas from whatever darkness lurked in that house. Ethan's military training had taught him to trust his gut, and it was screaming that something was rotten in the garage. Tonight, he would find answers, no matter the cost. As Ethan adjusted his jacket, Claire, his girlfriend, stepped out of their car, her green eyes scanning the house with the precision of a hawk. A former military intelligence officer, Claire was a force of nature, sharp, fearless, and fiercely loyal. She'd been Ethan's anchor since the divorce, helping him navigate single fatherhood and rebuild his fractured life. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked, her voice low but steady. "We can walk away, Ethan. Say the word." Ethan shook his head, his jaw set. "Lucas deserves to feel safe. Whatever they're hiding, we're exposing it tonight." Claire nodded, slipping a small digital recorder into her pocket. They were a team, forged in trust and tempered by shared purpose. Tonight, they'd operate like the operatives they once were, moving with precision and intent. The dinner party was a masquerade of civility, a stage play with hidden stakes. Sophia, radiant in a navy silk dress, greeted Ethan and Claire with a smile that never reached her eyes. Her beauty was undeniable, but it masked a coldness Ethan had learned to recognize. Mason, broad-shouldered and exuding false confidence, shook Ethan's hand with a grip meant to assert dominance, his cologne sharp and overpowering. The dining room was a study in opulence. Crystal glasses gleamed, silverware sparkled, and a chandelier cast soft light over a mahogany table. But Ethan's focus was elsewhere. Mason's behavior was off, nervous glances toward the hallway, a laugh that rang hollow, a sheen of sweat on his brow despite the cool evening. During the main course, Mason excused himself to check on something, and Ethan's eyes tracked him to the garage door. He watched Mason punch in a code on a keypad. 4389. Ethan's pulse quickened. He'd installed that lock himself, years ago, when the house was still a symbol of hope. The code was unchanged, a careless oversight that gave Ethan an edge. He filed the observation away, his mind already mapping the next steps. Claire, ever the tactician, kept Sophia distracted with effortless charm, steering the conversation toward local politics and Sophia's supposed charity work. Ethan played his part, nodding at the right moments, complimenting the wine, but his senses were on high alert. When dessert lavender-infused creme brulee was served, Ethan seized his chance. "Bathroom break," he muttered, slipping away. Instead, he moved silently toward the garage, his SEAL training guiding his steps, light footfalls, controlled breathing, every sense attuned to his surroundings. The garage was no longer the workshop of his memories. The air was thick with a chemical tang, sharp and acrid, like bleach mixed with something sweeter, more sinister. The space was cluttered with lab equipment, glass beakers, burners, and stacks of sealed containers labeled with cryptic codes. A faint hum emanated from a ventilation system, hastily rigged to a duct in the ceiling. Ethan's blood ran cold. He'd seen setups like this during his military days, in raids on illicit operations overseas. This wasn't a hobbyist's project, it was a drug lab, likely producing something as deadly as fentanyl. His mind flashed to Lucas, sleeping in this house, mere yards from this poison. Rage simmered, but Ethan channeled it into focus. He needed evidence, not emotion. Claire joined him minutes later, her face a mask of grim determination. "I got Sophia talking about her new business venture," she whispered. "She's cagey, but it's clear she's in deep with Mason. They're funding something big." Ethan pointed to the ventilation duct. "That's our proof. Can you get a sample?" Claire nodded, pulling a small vial from her pocket. Using a step stool, she scraped residue from the duct's filter, her movements precise and practiced. She sealed the vial and tucked it away. "This'll tell us what we're dealing with," she said. "Let's get out before they notice." Back at their apartment, Ethan sent the sample to a contact at a private lab, a favor from his military days. The results arrived within 48 hours. Traces of fentanyl and a cocktail of precursors, enough to link the lab to a string of overdoses in the county, including the tragic deaths of 3 teenagers. The news hit Ethan like a freight train. These weren't just criminals, they were monsters, poisoning their community while Lucas slept under their roof. His rage burned white-hot, but he tempered it with strategy. This wasn't about vengeance, it was about justice, for his son and for every family those drugs had destroyed. Ethan's plan was surgical, a masterpiece of precision born from his years as a SEAL. He and Claire would dismantle Sophia and Mason's operation from every angle, financially, socially, legally. They needed more evidence, something ironclad to ensure convictions. The house held one more secret, a hidden tunnel Ethan had built during construction, a precaution from his paranoid military days. It ran from the basement to the garage, concealed behind a false wall of cinder blocks. Under cover of darkness, Ethan and Claire slipped into the tunnel, their flashlights cutting through the damp, musty air. They emerged in the garage's shadowed corner, moving like ghosts. The lab was even more damning up close. Ethan photographed everything: beakers, burners, stacks of chemicals, and a ledger detailing transactions. Claire hacked into a laptop Mason had left unsecured, downloading files that revealed a sprawling network, client lists, distribution routes, and financial records showing millions in profits. The scale was staggering, a betrayal not just of Ethan but of every value he'd fought for. They worked in silence, their movements synchronized, gathering enough evidence to bury Sophia and Mason for good. The final act came a week later. Ethan invited Mason to the house under the pretense of discussing Lucas's custody arrangements. Mason arrived alone, his arrogance palpable, a smirk playing on his lips. But when he stepped into the living room, Ethan was ready. "You've been busy in my garage," Ethan said, his voice low and steady, a blade wrapped in velvet. Mason's face paled, but he scoffed, reaching for a handgun tucked in his jacket. "You're out of your depth, Caldwell." Ethan didn't flinch. "You're standing in a house wired with DEA microphones. Smile, you're on camera." Mason's eyes darted, panic setting in. Ethan had tipped off a DEA contact days earlier, using the evidence to secure a sting. Agents were already closing in, their vehicles silent on the street outside. Mason's gun wavered, then dropped as the reality sank in. He was cuffed and gone within minutes, his empire crumbling before his eyes. Sophia's arrest followed swiftly. Faced with overwhelming evidence, photos, ledgers, digital files, she cut a deal, testifying against Mason for a reduced sentence. Mason faced 20 years in federal prison, his assets seized, his reputation reduced to ash. Sophia was sentenced to 12 years, with a chance at parole, but her social standing was obliterated. Her sister Emily severed all ties, and the community turned its back, shunning her as a pariah. Ethan, through the asset forfeiture process, reclaimed the house he'd built, a bittersweet victory that felt like reclaiming a piece of his soul. The aftermath was a labor of love, a testament to Ethan's unyielding spirit. He and Lucas spent months gutting the garage, tearing out every trace of the lab. They sanded floors, painted walls, and planted a garden where poison had once thrived. The house became a home again, a sanctuary for father and son. Claire, with her fierce heart and quiet strength, became a cornerstone of their new family. Her presence, a reminder that love could bloom even in the wake of betrayal. But this story is more than Ethan's triumphs, a beacon for anyone trapped by the weight of their past. Ethan didn't just survive, he thrived, turning pain into purpose, betrayal into strength. He took the ruins of his life and built a future for his son, proving that no wound is too deep to heal, no enemy too strong to overcome. This is your call to action. Rise from the ashes of your own struggles, wield your pain as a weapon, and forge a life of meaning and impact. Let Ethan's story be the spark that sets your soul ablaze, urging you to break free from the mundane and chase your own reclamation with unrelenting passion. The world is waiting for your comeback, and it starts now.